today I'm going to be talking to you guys about EKGs. The Mayo Clinic defines EKG as a quick test to check the heartbeat. It records the electrical signals of the heart, test results can be used to help diagnose heart attacks, irregular heartbeats, and arrhythmias. So today I'm going to talk to you about EKGs, what they represent, how to read one, and different types of dysfunctions they can show. So to begin, we're going to talk about how it's set up. So I'm going to move the next slide for this. So this is basically how it's set up. So when you set up an EKG, you place two electrodes on people, which are called leads. There's a negative electrode and a positive electrode. And how we're going to start is we're going to talk about what these electrodes mean. So a positive deflection, which is where the graph goes up, is when a charge, when like charges go towards each other. So if there is a positive charge going towards the positive lead, which is placed at the apex of the heart, or about here, then that is a positive deflection. Or if there's a negative charge going towards a negative lead, which is up here, that's negative deflection. And a positive deflection. To get a negative deflection, it is a different charge. So if a negative charge is going towards a positive lead, that is a negative deflection. So we have that downward dip in the graph. So next up, we're going to get into the bulk of this, which is where you might feel a bit overwhelmed. We're going to talk about this. So to begin, we have the P wave. So the P wave here is the first part of an EKG, which represents atrial depolarization. So this is where the electrical charge, which is positive, of ions moves from the SA node over to the AV node. And so it's a positive deflection because it's a positive charge moving towards this positive lead right here. Then we have what we call an isometric line. So an isometric line is when that electrical activity doesn't move in a certain direction towards the lead, but kind of stays perpendicular and just kind of holds. So for this isometric line called the PR segment, it's where the AV node, which allows this whole QRS segment that we'll talk about later to occur, it holds the charge for about 0.1 seconds. And that is to allow blood to flow from the atria, which is the top two chambers, into the ventricles, which is the bottom two chambers. Then we have what we call a Q wave right here. So this is where that electrical charge that's positive moves out of the AV node, down the bundle of His, into the left bundle branch. So these are all electrical nervous pathways within your heart. And basically, that charge moves down and then moves into the interventricular septum towards the left. The interventricular septum is the wall that separates the two ventricles. And so basically, this is a negative deflection because it's positive charge, that's net vector. So like the main point of the charge moves this way. So it's going towards this negative lead up here. Then we have the R wave, which goes all the way up there. This is our biggest positive deflection and represents ventricle depolarization. So this is where the ventricles contract. But in this part of it, we have that positive electrical charge going throughout the walls of the ventricle like this. And you may think, oh, why are there two arrows pointing that way? But it's still going towards that positive lead. That's because the left wall of ventricle is much thicker than the right, and therefore the net vector goes towards that positive lead. Then we have the S wave, which is where that contraction goes up, pushes the blood up out of the heart. And so you see that positive charge heading towards that negative lead, causing that negative deflection. Then we have our ST segment, which is another isometric line, where the heart holds that positive charge for a second. And then we have our last part, which is our T wave, which is basically where the ventricles repolarize. Repolarizing is when the charge switches from positive to negative. For the atria, it's kind of lost in the QRS complex over here because it's so much more prevalent. But basically, that negative charge is moving towards the negative lead, which creates this positive deflection right here. So that's an EKG as a whole. Next, we're going to talk about a couple different types of unhealthy EKGs. So over here, we have a STEMI. So this is a STEMI, and this is what is known as a common heart attack. So this is where the ST line, the ST segment, is elevated, and it doesn't allow the ventricles to fully depolarize. And then over here, this is called my apologies. This is called ventricular tachycardia. So this is just kind of where that QRS complex kind of flips upside down. And then we have atrial fibrillation, which is kind of like a fluttering of the atria.